Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. I'm very excited to be here today. I'm very excited to present this information to you guys. My name is Douglas Brown. Please call me Doug. And my job is I'm the Global Technology Evangelist at IGEL. And you might also know me from dabcc.com. And I've been around a long time, started with Citrix Technologies around 96, 97 time frame. And well, I love it. So I have the greatest job on earth. And really what my job is to run around the world and share with the people what we're doing, the amazing things that we're doing over at IGEL. And it's been a great pleasure. I've been on the road for really about the past 2.5 months solid, almost every week. And in that time, I've had just again, the great pleasure to get in front of you guys, to get in front of user groups and big events and small events and customers and share this. And as I'm telling the stories, as I'm showing them the technology, you can see it in their face. You can see it in their eyes. They're seeing that this technology solves a problem. This technology is addresses the issues that other people aren't addressing, and it only gets better. And I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's just dive into this thing. So my agenda is pretty simple. The first thing we're going to do is talk a bit about the past because we really want to understand what's happening today and where we're going in the future. And the best way to do that is to understand the past. So we're going to talk a bit about the past and a little history. Then we're going to talk about the present and the future and try to look into my crystal ball and see where we are going. So today is VDI, tomorrow is DAS, and we'll talk a bit about that. So what is software defined? There's a lot of buzzwords out there nowadays. Everybody has a buzzword. You have cloud and virtualization and software defined. And what does that mean? What does it mean to us, to you? And is IGEL software defined? So we'll talk a bit about that. And of course, then I'm going to talk about the IGEL solution and why it addresses some of the problems that I laid out and why you should care. And I'll give you a demo. So again, VDI in the SBC, VDI and SBC in the enterprise today. How did we get here? So let's talk a bit about how we got here. Because again, the best way to understand today and the best way to see into the future is to understand the past. So my childhood, I love to tell this story, and I've been telling it for, well, my entire Citrix existence because it's the reason I'm here. It's the reason I worked for Citrix. It's the reason I talk about remoting. And when I say Citrix, I mean Citrix, Microsoft, VMware, remoting, the idea of having centralized app delivery via a remoting protocol. So I grew up, I'm 46 years old, so I'm a sort of an old man, and I grew up in really an IT family. My father was an IT guy, but he didn't bring it home that much, although he did once, and I'll tell you about that. And so the first time he really brought his work home was in October of 1977, and he brought home a TRS-80 Model 1 computer. It was one of the first computers, and I know some of you guys are like, I remember that. Every time I present this, you see somebody in the crowd that says, yeah, I remember. I usually ask the question. It was a great little computer that you could set and put in front of a TV set, and sort of like all the original PCs, right, or the original home computers. And it had a compiler in there, basic language. And he taught me 10 print Doug. And my name was on a screen, and I thought to myself, wow, this is amazing. And if you remember back into the 70s, if you're old enough, there wasn't a lot of graphics on the TV screen. So to be able to see my name, I felt like a movie star. And I knew that this is what I wanted to do with my life. So I started playing more and learning more about computers. And I was lucky because my father was an IT manager, IT director, and eventually a vice president of IT. And back then they called it MIS. So he would take me down to his office on nights and weekends and set me down with his programmers and what have you. And I learned to write code, but I also read a lot. And I read a lot of these magazines. And one of the magazines in the very back had the top CEOs. And then there was this squirrely little kid, big glasses, messy hair, just didn't look like he belonged with all the other CEOs. And you know him, Bill Gates. And so I started following this Microsoft thing, and I kept telling my father about it. And I remember one day very clearly, I walked into my father's office. I was down at his office, must have been a weekend day because I remember it very clearly. And I walked in and said, Dad, you know what? You should really look at this Microsoft thing. And he'd been hearing me tell the stories to him so many times that he's an interesting guy. He doesn't talk a lot to you. He just sort of does his work and ignores you. And so he's ignoring me and I'm talking. He's ignoring me and I'm talking. Finally, he slams his fist down on the table, looks up at me, and I sort of take a step back. And he says, listen here, boy, you don't have a clue of what you're talking about. What Bill Gates and what Microsoft is bringing you is a bad idea. The IT department is going to become the biggest department in a company that creates widgets. Why would that happen? Why is that? A PC is, you're going to distribute technology. You're going to put applications on the edge. How are you going to secure that? How are you going to deploy it? How are you going to update it? This is you don't know what you're talking about. Go back and leave me alone. I got work to do. So I grabbed my magazine, put them underneath my arm, and I walked out the door. And he was right. Everything he said is true. The problem is he missed the fact that we actually did, and he should have bought Microsoft stock the way I told him to do. But, then I would be here doing this for fun, not for a job. But wait a second. My job is fun. I got the best of all lives. So the 1980s came around, and in really early 80s and 90s came around, and Microsoft and IBM got together and started creating something called OS2. And OS2 was the first network operating system. So before we had just Windows, and they were distributed, or sort of a Windows for work groups or what have you. And we had some other Banyan Vines and some other networks out there. Novell, don't forget good old Novell. But OS2 was a big thing in our world because the guy that was in charge of bringing OS to the market was a gentleman named Ed Akabuchi, and I imagine a few of you guys have know his name. Ed created Citrix. So the story is something like this, or at least this is the way I like to tell it, is that Ed realized as he was developing OS2 that they need multi-user extensions. They need to make this thing to a mainframe. So he went to IBM and said, you know what? We need to add multi-users extensions. Let's make this multi-user aware. And IBM said, no. That's what we sell. We have mainframes. We sell mainframes for that purpose. So Ed left and went up to Redmond and walked into Bill Gates' office and said, Bill, we need to make this a multi-user aware operating system. And Bill said, no. My vision is a computer on every desktop. I want to have a monopoly. And once I put a computer on every desktop, Microsoft is the biggest and the best, and I'll have the most money in the world, and then I'll go cure malaria and AIDS and a bunch of other great things. I will be a wonderful man. And he was correct. He did that. But Ed was correct too. So Ed left his comfortable job at IBM and created a startup. And that startup was created actually in 1989, and that startup was Citrix. And the goal there was to create a mainframe type of environment within the personal computer and really to put the app where the data is. And I ask this question to people all the time when we start talking about VDI and DAS is, why did we deploy Citrix to begin with? We deployed Citrix to begin with because we wanted to put the app where the data was. So that if you remember back in the 90s or even today, opening up a spreadsheet might take a while because it needs to download to the local machine. But when you use a remoting solution, Citrix, Microsoft, VMware, the others, then it opens up instantaneous. It's also great for pane of glass security, blah, 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 blah. Right? You know the Citrix story. I'm not here to preach that. So in the 1980s and 90s, Ed really was very important to what we're doing today because he left IBM. He understood what was going, he understood the past, he understood the problems, and he understood the future. 1999 came around, 10 years after Citrix was founded, and they created something called Seamless Windows. And the idea was, at the time, we were all using basically Windows devices. And the idea was to make the application, the remote application, look and feel as though it was running locally side by side with traditional Windows applications, what I call legacy applications, the 16, 32-bit, 64-bit applications that we're all familiar with that runs on Windows. But of course, today's a different world. But in 99, it worked perfectly. It was seamless, and we did away with publishing desktops, and we started saying, hey, bring the apps directly down, and the end users don't need to know. In fact, I went to go work for Citrix a year later, and when I went to work for Citrix, I told my mother, and my mother's like, Citrix, who are they? Why are you leaving Des Moines? My boy is leaving home. Oh, no, what's going on? Why? She went to the office. She double clicked on one of our applications. She saw the word Citrix. She called me up and said, Doug, we use Citrix. Yes, yes, yes. So it's very important, seamless Windows. In 2009, another 10 years came by, and really about 2007, 2008, 2009, VDI started coming around, and the idea came from VMware because VMware was massively successful deploying or virtualizing servers and taking servers and putting them on traditional servers that were attached coupled to hardware and putting them on a virtualized environment. And at that point, you could take one server or 20 servers and put them on one piece of hardware. It was huge, right? And what they were doing is they were virtualizing, they were abstracting, they were turning the operating system into bits. And we'll talk a bit about that in a little bit because it is so important, that idea of turning a piece of software that used to be traditionally coupled to a hardware and turn it into bits and allow us to do almost anything with it. And really the beauty of virtualization, to steal a quote from old Paul Maritz, who was the old CEO of VMware, he said, quote, "The beauty of virtualization is abstraction." End quote. And I totally agree with that, because really what they pioneered within our world, which came from the mainframe world, was the idea of no longer is software need to be tethered, need to be tied, need to be entrenched, need to be built on top of hardware directly without being able to make it portable. And virtualization did that. So the idea of VDI came around, and because VMware said, you know what, it doesn't just have to be servers. We can put workstations on here. So at first it was very simple, and then the broker started building out the security around it, started building out more and more feature sets. And fast forward to 2017, and VDI is a big thing. A lot of people are using this. It also gave the user a desktop in their own CPU, their own chunk of memory, right? Their own personalized environment. If an application ran amok, who cared? It didn't matter. So Citrix is a bridge. I've always said this, and I think Ed understood this too. It's a bridge from legacy to the future. And what I mean by that is it takes those 16, 32-bit, 64-bit applications and webifies them. In the old days, Citrix had a mantra that said, we bring Windows to the web, and that is so true today. And today, the web is here. It's huge, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And Ed understood that too, and if you remember something called Project Vertigo, Project Vertigo was a project that allowed developers to create really rich web-based applications in 1999. And the thing was canned because of the .com crash and what have you, but we take it for granted. It's called HTML5 or .NET. And but Ed had that vision way back when to put traditional applications, legacy applications, Windows applications side by side with web applications. And now this one in 2017, not as important as everything else. I'm not that arrogant to think that I'm as important as the other bullets ahead of me, but it's important to understand, for you guys to understand. And if you know who I am, or have ever seen me, or just a guy that's been around a long time, why would I join IGEL? So my history is pretty simple. Like I told you, I started with computers at a very young age. My father told me about the mainframe. So when I was introduced to Citrix, I jumped on this bandwagon 100% because I believed it was the greatest thing ever. And still to this day, I've always said it's the greatest thing my eyes have ever seen. The first time I saw a Citrix session, that was just amazing to me. So I went to go work for Citrix for 4 years. I left Citrix and worked for myself doing DABCC, which I had the greatest job. I went where I wanted, when I wanted, how I wanted. Just had a grand old time. I'm not rich, I'm not poor, I'm somewhere in between. And but I had this flexibility to live the life that you want to live and not really have a boss. I was my own boss. So I also do podcasting, and in December of last year, I was recording a podcast with Jed Ayers, the global CMO and CEO and president of the Americas at IGEL, and the podcast went south. We had a bunch of static on the line. It does not make for a good podcast. So he said, "Hey, Doug, call me. I'll tell you the off-the-record story." So he's telling me this off-the-record story, and I said, "Jed, I know this." I said, "I know this. I know it, Jed. I know that. Yeah, Jed, I know this." He said, "Doug, the problem is you do know this. Benny and Sean and Ruben and all the community guys, they might know this, but not everyone does. That's our biggest problem. And I said, Chad, well, just hire me and I'll tell the world. He said, you want to work for us? And so I didn't say that. No, you just said that. I said, oh, well, yeah, you know what? I'll listen to you. Let's talk. So we started talking. I said, Jed, I want to have fun. I want to go out and have fun. I want to tell people. I want to have the experience I had when I was at Citrix in the early days and showing people great technology and having their face light up. He said, Doug, we got a job for you. And a month after that podcast, I was employed at IGEL. And 10 months later, I've had the best time in the past 10 months. So the point is, I did not come to IGEL because I was looking for a job. I did not come to IGEL because they were looking for me. I did not come to IGEL because I needed the job. I came to IGEL because I wanted to share what they were doing. And so you have a guy that has the ability to do a lot of interesting stuff that had enough of what he needed, but came here because he wanted to. And that right there is as powerful statement as I think that we can have. Webinar over. No. Why? So let's look into my crystal ball. I've been around a long time, so I've seen it all, as a few of you guys have. The future is definitely cloudy. We all know that, right? Data will continue to move to the cloud. Right now, we're bursting into cloud. We're backing up to the cloud. The cloud is being utilized by us in ways that we're just starting to really understand, or we're well into it. More cloud services will be utilized by IT over the coming years, more as a service, and more traditional applications are actually being rewritten by the owners, by the vendors of those, the creators, the software providers, the ISVs, as a service. So that's only going to continue. A typical user will access apps, data, resources from a variety of locations, and owners. Because again, in the past, we had our traditional client server applications. We own that, right? We were responsible for the client and the server. Now we're not necessarily responsible for either one of them, other than maybe the browser. And of course, devices. The millennials are crazy in their usage of devices, and I'll hit on this a few times today. But there are more and more devices. On my desk right now, I can see 5 different devices, believe it or not. When I travel, I always bring at least 3, if not 4 devices, and I'm 46. The millennials, they're bringing tons of them, or they're bringing something crazy like a Chromebook. We'll talk about that. Mobility of the user will not be slowing down. When I started IT, you went to the office, you sat in an office, and now that's no longer the case. Now the idea of any is definitely here, and then some, including lots of different devices. Persona, identity, and security are key. This is the big one right here, is we need to have a consistent persona and identity, and we need to be secure. There's not a person out there that hasn't read something in the past week about security breach. We've seen it almost every single day. And as we move into the world of IoT, we're going to have more and more devices on our wire, and those are all going to be secure. And it's always a cat and mouse game. So what do I say there? GDPR. I believe this is the new Y2K. And the GDPR is the European regulations around privacy, saying that the data cannot leave the country. The user has the right to privacy. Imagine that. And this is huge, because as we, put a Excel spreadsheet with personal users' personal data, and I fly from Berlin, where I'm currently sitting, back to America, I just broke the law. But when you use a technology like Citrix coupled with IGEL, you're GDPR compliant. It's amazing. But it's like Y2K. It can be a huge problem if we don't do the work. And the reason Y2K wasn't that big of a problem was, 1, it was probably overhyped. But 2, because we did a lot of work. And for those who remember Y2K that was around, you remember it was long days testing every single device. And we found the bad devices, upgraded them. And that's what we're going to have to do with GDPR. We're going to have to change how we compute. And really, it's a better way to compute. It's the Citrix, Microsoft, VMware, the remoting way to compute with secure managed endpoints from IGEL. So VDI is today, DAS is tomorrow. What do I mean by this? Well, you know what? Solutions like AWS, Azure, Google are affecting the requirements and rules of the endpoint. The world is changing in ways that we can't imagine, or the ways I would have never imagined a long time ago. I'll tell you that much. We're moving to the cloud, as I mentioned. Whether we like it or not, we're moving to the cloud. Citrix loves Azure, and rightfully so. and is vesting big time. So I used to work for Citrix. I'm well connected. I have a lot of friends over there. I ran into one at the last Citrix Synergy, and I said, "Hey, tell me what's going on at Citrix. Tell me the real story." He said, "Doug, you know what the story is? The cloud." I was like, "Okay." He goes, "We lead with the cloud." I'm like, "Okay." And if they don't want the cloud, we talk about the cloud. I'm like, "Okay." And he goes, "Are they still not interested in the cloud? We talk about the cloud some more." Then we walk around, hit them in the side of the head with the cloud. If they're still not paying attention, we come and smack them in the back of the head with the cloud. The story is the cloud. Citrix loves Azure, and we love the cloud. And what's important about this is not just that Citrix loves the cloud, or VMware loves the cloud, or Microsoft loves Azure, right? Or AWS is coming, is here, and you will see more and more from them in the future. That's not the story. The story is that because they love them, we as IT, we're dependent upon them. If Microsoft goes to the cloud, we go with them. If Citrix goes to the cloud, we go with them because those are the solutions we use. So we don't have a choice. We are moving to the cloud. Citrix on Azure, every week we're seeing new enhancements in that, and it's one of the benefits of the cloud is rapid deployment, right? No longer you have traditional software cycles. It's you can do things a lot quicker, as we're all familiar. Citrix loves the cloud. Amazon has something called workspaces, which quite intrigues me. It's not something that's really big and big today. It's not even enterprise ready today in some cases. But what's interesting about Amazon is they're no small player. Workspace is not something the stock market is watching, or their investors are saying, "How you doing on that? You need to do it quicker." They're able to do it methodically. They're able to solve problems as they find them, create a good roadmap, and get there slowly. But as we're moving our data to the cloud, as we're moving our data to the cloud, day we're going to wake up and realize, what? All of our data is sitting in Azure. All of our data is sitting in Amazon. Oh, I will use Citrix on Azure. Oh, I will use this thing called Workspaces on Azure, and it'll be ready by then. And that's the future, right? That's the DAS. Google Chromebooks. I never thought I'd see a day that people would buy a laptop with nothing more than a browser. What's the point of that? Well, there's huge points to it. You can do many different things with that. So millennials love these things. I don't understand millennials. I inherently don't. I'm officially old now because I look at the kids and I say, "Boy, what are these kids doing? What are those boys and girls doing out there today?" That's what I say quite often. So they love those Chromebooks. They love their iPads. They can work off of these devices. We need to be able to manage these devices. We need to be able to give them an enterprise secure experience with these devices. So VDI was really first generation, and DAS is really the second generation of the better way to compute. Everything will be cloud delivered, whether we like it or not, cloud delivered, and I think we should like it. I remember doing a debate with, out of all people, Simon Crosby back in about 2006 or 2007. I got suckered into doing a debate with, how do you debate Simon Crosby? And I just kept sort of making jokes because I didn't have anything positive to say or anything that I could argue with him. But the whole thing was the cloud is the future, and that's what he was saying, and it is so true. So what does software defined mean to us? Yet another buzzword, right? Well, did you realize that why, all of us and everybody out there was talking about AI and VR and IoT and every other three-letter acronym or two-letter acronym or just acronym in general? Do you notice that that we basically, what we did is we turned our entire data center into software, and now it can be virtualized and automated? The entire 7 layers of the OSI model can be virtualized and automated. That's so powerful. Why? Because of the abstraction that I talked about earlier. But really, it's because we turned everything into bits. We turned it into software. And we turned it into bits, we can update things, right? We can update things in real time. Allows us for faster provisioning, deployment, and maintaining. So let me tell you a story. When I first was introduced to a good old AppV, it was a company called Softricity. SoftGrid was the solution, if you guys remember that. And they were presenting it to me in the very early days of this. And they said, "Doug, do you get it?" And I was like, "No, I don't. I don't really 100% get it." And they said, "Doug, when you turn software that was formerly coupled to the hardware with registry settings and files in different locations, and you can't just pick up the folder and copy it to another operating system and run it. When you turn that into bits, what you've done now is allowed us for faster provisioning, because we only have to provision what's changed. We can stream it down and use variable bandwidth to do that. We can update it and only update what is required, the bits that are updated, not the entire operating system. So at the end, again, we can, for much faster, much easier, much more secure, much everything better provisioning, deployment, and maintaining because we turned it into software, right? It's software defined. Reduces the total cost of ownership of basically of everything, right? Because of the fact that what we're doing is we're reducing the hardware acquisition and redeploying of supporting labor. And what do I mean that by that? When we turn a switch and a router into a piece of software, no longer do you have to buy a box. It now fits on a virtualized piece of hardware, a hardware with a virtualization layer, or maybe into a container with Docker, right, in the future as we move into containers. But we're moving that into software. And again, now we can update and maintain it. And then, of course, we have all those people that used to be responsible for managing all this hardware. We have the cost. We no longer have to pay for that. And these admins are now able to go and do that bucket list. Everyone out there has a bucket list of things that you need to do, wish you could do, but never have the time to do it within IT, right? I'm not talking about jumping out of airplanes. I'm talking about solving customer problems that you can't because you're constantly fighting battles with hardware. Now we can go and redeploy those admins and tell them, hey, you can do these lists on these items on our list that we've never been able to do. So we save money and we tackle more work. Wow, imagine that. At the end of the day, with software defined, everything gets better without buying new because we can update it. It's just software. And you might have heard that IGEL is giving away a Tesla. A German company is giving away an American car. And not just an American car, but a brand new, fancy electric American car. And why would we do that? And some of the Germans think to themselves, I don't get it. Well, there's a reason. And I didn't get it too until I sort of looked into it and it was, it's software defined. The Tesla is the very first car that gets better after you buy it. Every other car loses value. The engine gets slower. You take it in for maintenance. The Tesla's not like that. It's a computer. It's an electric engine. Did you know that if you bought a Tesla a year ago, it's actually today 1.5 seconds faster? And it became 1.5 seconds faster while you were sleeping. You didn't even have to wake up. While you were sleeping, they downloaded a update to the engine over the air through the cloud, right? Updated the bits on the operating system that runs your computer, called your car, the computer called your car, and it got 1.5 seconds faster. During Hurricane Irma, Tesla put down an update in real time over the air via the cloud, right? To allow the Tesla to actually, it slowed it down a little bit, but allowed for the people escaping Florida, the hurricane, to go in 60 miles, X amount of miles farther on the same charge. How powerful is that in real time? That is getting better without buying new. That's like what IGEL does. We get better without buying new. We can use your existing hardware and it'll get better without buying new. It's so powerful. It's incredible. And that's the power of software defined. And that's why anything and everything that's software defined is cheaper, better. And just, well, what else is there? Cheaper and better. I like that. And I think you guys do too. So why? Let's talk a bit about IGEL. This is something I'll actually read to you because it's super powerful little quote here I put together. IGEL is a platform to manage, update, provision, and secure endpoints any place at any time. And just like the Tesla, we're able to manage our devices, the car. We're able to update our devices, the car via the cloud because it's software. We're able to provision and secure the endpoints. Powerful at any place, any time. And I'll explain what all this means now. So really what IGEL brings is one platform, one software platform with two components. Those components are, first of all, an IGEL operating system that's really developed and built for Citrix, for Microsoft, for VMware, for VDI world, for the future DAS world. And that is powered by the IGEL Universal Management Suite, the UMS as we like to call it. So the two work together. So let's talk a bit about the IGEL OS. First of all, it works on any 64-bit x86 64-bit hardware with 2 gigs of RAM, and it can even be virtualized and throw it into a VM. In fact, my demo today is going to be, I have both of them virtualized running on my laptop here, on my Mac here. And but if you're looking at really any hardware created in the past 10 years is approximately 64-bit, x86 64-bit, including other vendors that make thin clients, traditional thin clients that you may be plugged in. You're like, this is not what I wanted. This is not manageable. This is not fast. This is not what I wanted. Hey, that's great. We can convert that, and we can make that into an IGEL supported client. We can make it better without you buying new. So you know what? I don't want to continue with all these bullets. Let me dive into the demo real quick. What do you guys think about that? That's power. Let's get into this demo. So real quick, what we have here is we have the operating system. This is the IGEL OS. And as you can see, it's an operating system, client operating system. And I'm here in Berlin, Germany at the moment. So I got the German football team, the football, soccer for Americans team. My background, I have a Citrix login and what have you. On the back end, I have my UMS, and this is another virtual machine running Windows. The UMS does run on both Linux and Windows. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And in here we have different profiles. Profiles are where we set settings, so we can set our configurations, and we can, believe it or not, we can do 7,000 different configurations within here. And then our what we call thin clients, the traditional name, I call them secure access points, or the IGEL operating system. And you see I've broken this down into just a default container for, I'll show you this in a second. We have England, Germany, some locations and different time zones. And basically what we have here is, here's my thin client. Then clicking this, I can see a bunch of information about it, but I can also say, you know what, Doug's heading to America. And you can do this via policy too. It'll look at where I am and put me in the appropriate container, right? So I don't have to do this manually, but for the point of doing a demo, and the fact that I'm not going to get on a plane today and fly to America for the point of this demo, I'm going to go ahead and move this over to good old England. And what's powerful, again, is we do this in real time. As we move the thin client to a different container, it's going to inherit the different objects within that container and then deploy those down to the operating system in real time, if you choose, or on reboot if you like legacy world, or maybe there's a reason for it. But we want to do this in real time because, again, we get better in real time. So come down here. Yes, we want this change. And in a second, it's going to change things for me. Now I'm in England with the England team, soccer team, football team. And you see, I still have my Citrix, but hey, you know what? These English people, they use Horizon client, Horizon View. So I can come on in here and it changed the background. I can change some settings. I can see, hey, I have different things in here. And every single thing you see is configurable centrally, 100%. And then I can say, you know what? I am now on my way to America. And I am coming to the East Coast because my American home is in sunny Florida. So in real time, I'm going to go ahead and transfer me. And we see it's going to update it. Oh, America, we're superheroes in America. And we see a browser, Citrix login. So it's updated the apps. But you know what? Those superheroes, they can be a bit, troublesome. I don't always trust the Americans. They might be a little bit dangerous. So I'm going to lock down their device. So I can just take this policy here. I'm just going to drag it down, and I'm going to drag it to all the Americans because I don't trust any of them. So let's go ahead and drag that down. And what's going to happen is, boom, now you see the start bar is gone. We've completely turned this into a kiosk. We can even make it to where when the user boots into the IGEL OS, it automatically launches their browser or automatically logs them into their Citrix session or their VMware session or the Microsoft session or their tons of other clients that we support. So really hugely powerful. And then we can do so many other things with this. It's incredible. For example, let me just open up just this lockdown one and just show you real quick as a basic policy. and I'm showing you 1%. I tell you, I thought I knew what IGEL did, as I told you when I was talking to Jed. Oh, I know. But every time I see one of our SEs do a demo, I'm amazed. Every time I learn something new, and I think to myself, how can I learn something new 10 months into this thing? I played with this in detail. I've read the manuals. I mean, I'm even writing a doc on how to deploy it. How can I learn something new every single time? Because it's that powerful, but it's simple too. Like I just showed you, drag and drop. In here, you can see different sessions, even LeoStream. I mean, you name it. SSH clients, IBM, Ericom here, Parallels client, VNC connectors, browsers, media player. I can stream media directly to my IGEL OS and take that outside of the Citrix license. Tons of different things. We can set up password change security, on-screen keyboards, task manager. Can you see it? Can't you see it? Where it's deployed? Things like that, right? You can change this operating system to your needs, to your requirements. Network settings, how they get the DHCP clients, VPNs, you name it. We support everything. This operating system's been around for a long time. Wasn't created yesterday. Security, of course, we can secure login. All that stuff, system. And then you think to yourself, you know what, I have no clue or where to find this setting because there's so many of them. I can just type in here and I can find that. So really powerful. So there's so much more I can show you, but I want to get back into the presentation. And again, we'll talk about this in a second. So let's get back to my PowerPoint. Well, real quick, I showed you the operating system, but believe it or not, what's beautiful, and I'll talk about this in a second, but beautiful about the IGEL OS is it's our OS. We can put it anywhere. So how do we do this? What does this mean? Well, one, we have something called a UD Pocket, which you see in front of you. This is to scale this image. You see this giant hand with this tiny little thing. That tiny little thing is just a USB stick that plugs into a piece of hardware, an x86 64-bit hardware, or something like you see down here, the 10-zig or a Weiss thin client that you might have bought and you said, you know what, this is just an HP device. You know what, this isn't what I wanted. The management isn't there. It's not as good as it once was. I want to make it better. I want it better without buying new. So all you have to do is plug in this little device, boom, 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 and boot it, and away you go. That's our UD Pocket, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. If you want one of these, please let me know, brown@igel.com, and we will get you one to play around with. Really awesome. So let's get back into this. So it is secured by design. When our developers first wrote this operating system, security was design one. It wasn't a 1980s, 1990s operating system that's been retrofitted every single year on the year, that's been buggy and insecure. When WannaCry came around, we didn't cry. Did you cry? We sort of laughed, but we didn't really laugh. We felt bad, and we hoped and wished that you would get onto the IGEL operating system for Citrix, for Microsoft, or VMware, because it is secure by design. It's a read-only file system, so you can actually delete the entire file system, and all you did is delete it from memory. When you boot it up, it actually boots the entire operating system into memory. Really powerful. You can take the OS from kiosk to a full OS, like it sort of showed you just in my quick little demo, that I was able to remove the taskbar. I was able to really take it down into a lockdown environment, or I was able to open up and allow people to do what they wanted. We even have what we call custom partitions. So by default, we come with Firefox, but maybe you want Chrome. Well, you can do that, and it goes into a little custom partition on the USB stick or on the hard drive, but the OS itself is secure. So viruses, worms, you name it, bring them on. It doesn't matter to us because you just reboot and they're all gone. If they're there in the first place, which is Linux. And it's a hardened version of Linux that we created. And we have not had that security issue at all. So it is based on the Ubuntu kernel, and we did that for best peripheral support. The operating system's ours, but the kernel we took from Ubuntu because we can utilize any of the drivers. So pretty much we have a very wide supported drivers. If we don't support something, you'll let us know and we'll add it and we'll make that work. And again, back to security, we support smart cards and secure authentication, AD support, you name it, all that, check. BYOD ready, as I showed you with the UD Pocket. A user has a Chromebook, cool. Give them a UD Pocket, have them boot into the operating system like you saw in the demo. They do their work. They pull out the USB stick, they reboot their device, they're back in their virus-infected Chromebook, or boom, they're into their Windows device. Great, You can take that as disaster recovery too, in that or that UD Pocket USB stick, and plug it into your in-laws computer, right? Boot it, boom, you're into the IGEL operating system, you're connecting to your services, and you'll pull it out, reboot, and you're back into the existing PC. So it works. You truly don't need Windows, guys. Now, I'm an old consultant, so I'm not going to sit here and say you need to get rid of every Windows device. No, there's some people that work great, love and need Windows. They need a Mac, right? But there's a lot of people that don't, or they want their Windows device, they want their Mac, but you know what? You don't want to manage it. Well, you don't have to. Save the money, save the reboot, save the updates, save the headache, save the security vulnerabilities. Just use the IGEL operating system. Simple to use, easily controlled. It gets better without buying new. So on the UMS side, I showed you that. We have granular configuration of 7,000 plus configurations, believe it or not. So I showed you a few. I don't have time for 7,000. No, do I understand all 7,000? Nor do you. You get to build it as you want. And if you have questions, we have answers. Real-time configuration, no reboots required. It's like the Tesla. We get better while you're sleeping. It's scalable, and I love this example. There's a company out there, Lazadica. They own lens crafters and a Sunglass Hut and many Sears Optical, Target Optical, a bunch of other companies like that. And they have 30,000 different devices located in 5,000 different global locations managed by one guy. And that guy doesn't even log in but once or twice a month. That is powerful. That is the benefit of software defined. And that is the benefit of what IGEL can bring you. We are extendable too. The UMS is not just the way it is today, it can get better. We have something called the Cloud Gateway, which allows secure roaming so that UD Pocket can go anywhere, anyplace, anytime securely. But now it's secure by design. It's secure by default. You don't need the Cloud Gateway for it. But the cloud allows us to secure that management piece and also deal with variable bandwidth and a bunch of other stuff. Just gives you a little bit added flexibility without being required to maybe a VPN or something. Traditional secure roaming. IMI, which is an API-based access to almost anything. So it's an API level to where we can communicate with different software packages, different hardware packages, and bring those into our UMS and manage those. So I actually challenged one of our SEs and said, hey, what about, can you bring a Pi into this? He said, yeah, I think I can. And a couple days later, he's like, I got it. And he just played with this on his spare time. He's not a professional developer. He's pretty good at it, don't get me wrong. But that's not his main goal in life. And just in a few days of a few hours a day, he managed to do it. Now with professional developers and goals and imagination, you can do anything with it. We have the UMA, which allows us to manage Windows. So we can bring Windows devices in and manage those the same way we did that IGEL operating system. And we even have the ability to track your mobile assets and devices. So we can bring those iPads in and know that they're out there, right? We can brick them if we need to, things of that nature, and much, much more. Again, this is so verbose, I can't get into, but it's not over-engineered. It's not difficult. You can drag and drop, as I showed you within the demo. It's really simple. And if you have questions, we got answers. So IGEL endpoints everywhere. And I keep talking about the IGEL operating system, and some people might think of us, IGEL, they make thin clients. Yes, hardware is something we do. It's not what we are. What we are, again, is the IGEL operating system powered by and coupled with the IGEL UMS. So you can actually save money. You can convert any existing operating system, x86 device, with the IGEL OS UDC flavor. And this stands for Universal Device Converter. It's the same old operating system, IGEL OS, that we put on anything that I just demoed for you. And basically what you do is you install that piece of software onto an existing device, you run it, it wipes the drive and loads the IGEL OS. Once you're done, you have the full-blown IGEL OS on that device. You can work from anywhere, from any x86 64-bit device using the IGEL OS on the UD Pocket. That little USB stick that's just going crazy. We're selling gangbusters. America's almost 1,000% growth this year, and a lot of it's powered by the anywhere, anytime access of the UD Pocket or the IGEL OS on the UD Pocket. No need to buy expensive PCs or Macs. Yeah, we do sell hardware. So if you're looking for a thin, piece of hardware with the IGEL operating system on it or the Zero client, you can have the same exact experience that I showed you, and we can provide you that hardware. So again, hardware is something we do. It's not what we are. We're a software platform. But yes, of course, we have those solutions. You can convert existing hardware out there too, like HP, Weiss, Tenzig, other devices that nature. Just pop in the UDC and convert it, or pop in the UD Pocket and convert it. And then, of course, there's leading manufacturers out there that have come to us and said, you know what, you have the best of breed OS. You have the best of breed management. We don't want to have to try to compete with you. We don't have to build this ourselves. Why would we do that? We're going to put you into our supply chain, and we're going to offer this with it, this or couple it with it. So Samsung, they have a device called the All-in-One. It's a full-blown monitor. It's like the iMac, and it's all powered by the IGEL OS. And something else to note when you see IGEL, think of IGEL anywhere, is if you ever go to Synergy, all the demos are powered by IGEL operating system. All the keynotes powered by IGEL operating system. Why? Because they know what they're going to get. It's predictable. It's software, and it only gets better. So IGEL has many different flavors, and flavors isn't even the right word, but we can take our operating system and we can put it on basically anything. And we have different versions of the OS, or not even versions of the OS. We have different flavors of that operating system to make it simple for you to get that onto it. But once it's onto the device, it's the same old OS powered by that super powerful management console we call the UMS. So let's bring this all back home. So let's step into the future with software defined. Like, hopefully I've been able to explain to you guys, software defined is a better way because it gets better without buying new. As the world changes, your software needs to grow and scale with it in real time. You want a Tesla, right? Check. We are a Tesla. We get better, as I talked about, in real time. The ability to access all your apps, data, and miscellaneous resources from one device. We can, if you have SaaS apps, great. We can put a browser down onto your operating system. I think I still have it here, right? Yeah. So here's the browser. So I can double click on this and go directly into my SaaS app. In fact, I can have multiple icons down here. One for, my ERP app, one for my financial app, what have you, and then different apps for my different applications. It's a desktop for that user. So check, we do that. Don't forget security. Yeah, guys, we're secure by design. Bring on the viruses. We're not susceptible. And GDPR is huge. It's absolutely huge. And what we're going to see, guys, this is, if you don't comply, you're going to get sued and fined, or you're going to get fined by the government. And there's going to be people out there that are going to make a lot of money finding people that are out of compliance. You need to be in compliance. And when you do a remoting solution like a VDI, like DAS, like server-based computing, be it Citrix, Microsoft, VMware, you're one step closer to GDPR compliant. But if that person has a Windows device and they say, well, I'll just download this piece of this customer list, this customer data, and put it on my machine, and then they go somewhere else, they might be breaking the law. With an IGEL operating system, you don't have that problem because everything remains in the back end where it belongs, where it's better to compute. Like my father said, why would you ever stick all that data on the front end? Why, boy? Why would you do that? And I ask you guys the same question. This is the same story I've been preaching for almost 20 years now. It's a better way to compute a Citrix, a Microsoft, a VMware, a remoting way. But we need a client that does it. You can't use your existing old architecture, your existing old software, your existing old solution and think that you're going to get all the benefits of what you're buying. You're not, right? Software defined. Let it get better without buying new. Competition. Of course, there's people out there that say they do what we do. Dell and HP are our biggest competitors. They're big box pushers. That's why, and they're going to tell you, you talk to them, they're going to tell you, hey, you know what? We do everything IGEL does, or we're better, and they don't do this or that. I dare you to compare. Go to igel.com/download. Download it yourself. email brown at igel.com, and I will send you a free UD Pocket. It's that simple, right? But in the end, all these full moon, half moon, quarter moon, this whole slide, forget about it. Everyone else is not software defined. Everyone else does not get better over time. They're tied to hardware. We're not. We're agnostic. We're software. We're just bits, and we can do anything with them. And as we update this software, which we're doing quite often, it just gets better in real time. How powerful is that? Anywhere, anyplace, anytime. The power of software. So, guys, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to listen to me, to listen to what the amazing things that we're doing over at IGEL. But I want to challenge you to TIFY, try it for yourself. Go to igel.com/download and have at it. If you have any questions, let me know. Brown at DABCC. I keep saying that. dbrown at dabcc.com, or better yet, brown at igel.com. And let me know. Reach out to your local SEs, local sales teams. Get on Twitter if you like. You'll find us. We're all over the place, and I think you're going to love what we bring. And like I said, to sort of bring this thing full circle, I've had such an amazing 10 months. I told Jed when I joined, I want to have some fun, Jed. I want to go back to when I was working at Citrix in the early days. And I want to see the expressions on people's faces when I explain what we have and how it solves their problems. And Jed, thank you. This is what I've had for the past 10 months. And I hope you guys got to see some of that today, and you're going to see the rest of it when you try it for yourself. So on that note, guys, I'll shut up. I'll let you get to trying it for yourself. So again, igel.com/download. Have at it. Have some fun. And thank you very much.